my mother-in-law were still alive, everybody would have said yes, 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 but because she was like Edith and he's like Archie, and nobody wants to be with Archie on Father's Day.
I hear you. Some reason, I'm just waiting for the signal to settle.
Yeah, okay. Are you ready for the heat? This is going to be, I think, your week. You're going to finally break 90.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Second. All right, stand by. Quietly. Happy Father's Day on a Sunday where the weather up and down just about all of the East Coast, with a couple of minor exceptions, is downright beautiful. And we've got heat.
Continue.
Yes, thank you. We've got the show is known for its technical prowess. Um, the Well, we've got heat coming, but not to the northeast and the coast, the coastal northeast and into the mid-Atlantic states. We'll talk about that the week ahead, the long range, the tropics, and maybe anything else you want to talk about. That's all coming up on this Father's Day Joe and Joe Weather Show. Happy Father's Day to you. 49 this morning here, Joe. 49.
I didn't see how cold it got up here, but I think we're pretty close. It's cool. It's a
Oh,
cool, dry, pleasant morning.
I'm out here in the mountains of North Georgia. I put my sweatshirt on this morning at about 7 a.m. and took the dog to the dog park. It was so delightful. And the thing is, well, it was actually even yesterday with the dew points, just plummeted yesterday. But temperatures did make it up into the upper 80s. But it was it's different here because of the fact that even when you get down this cool, I'm still going to get up to about 80, 82, 83 this afternoon. So that, the sun is really, really powerful
Well,
at this
I said
latitude.
to you before we started here. I said to you, I said this finally looks like the week, or at least the next few days. It looks like this is finally going to be a time when you break 90 degrees, which you
No,
did not do all
no,
year.
but on the other hand, this week on I think it was Wednesday, and I'm 2 hours north of Atlanta, just for perspective. Got to 99 in Atlanta, Joe. 99, and I didn't get above 90. I got to 88. Now in town, which is 10 miles from where I am, in town got to 90, 92, 93, and at the airport they did break 90 theirs, but they were. The usual rule I follow is that we're about roughly 5 to 7 degrees below what Atlanta is, because I'm 2,200 feet up, and other parts of town are only about 1,600 feet. But we'll see. I mean, if I can't do it, you would think that if Atlanta goes to 100, that I should be able to at least get to 90 up here. But I'm learning the climate here is rather interesting and rather volatile from place to place on any given day.
Well, you often say that we're attached by the hip sometimes, and 49 degrees here in beautiful downtown Putnam Valley. So
Yep,
you and I had the same thing, same temperature this morning.
that we
Lovely.
did. It really was nice. Um, Minor exceptions were last night when an area of rain on the backside of that upper low sitting off the New England coast came down over Suffolk County on Long Island, eastern Connecticut, southeastern New England, and there was still a little bit of it left over earlier today, but that's all except for right in the Cape. It's all pretty much pulled out. And when you just look at what's going on everywhere, and by the way, I was looking. My view of the long range is uh, I don't really see the overall pattern changing very much. Uh, The ridge is in the wrong spot for a heat wave in the east, and I think it's going to continue to be there. Every once in a while, it'll probably nose eastward, only to pull back. And everything to me, in terms of what I looked at the teleconnections today and yesterday, but especially today, it just keeps showing troughs want to come into the eastern part of the United States, which means even if it does get hot for a day or two, it's going to get cut off.
I agree with you, and it's funny the trough that's now over in the western United States, and again, this is a what we call a classic omega block because it looks like the Greek letter omega if you look at the upper air, 500 millibars. But the trough or the shortwave that's out over the western United States is going to sort of climb over the top of this ridge over the central part of the United States. It's going to reach a certain point, then it's going to try to dive southward. And at the same time, the trough that's here in the east is going to try to maintain itself. It's almost as if it's saying, all right, I'm going to stick around until, it's as if he was talking to the trough out in the western United States. The one in the east is saying, all right, I'm going to try to stick around as long as possible. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you to get here. And that pretty much is what's going to happen. The trough in the west is going to climb over the ridge, and then pretty much we'll try to join forces with the old trough in the east. And meanwhile, as you said, Joe, the ridge in the central part of the nation does not look like it's going to fully move into the eastern U.S. to bring the amazing heat that's going to be occurring over the central states. So it's going to kind of like it's going to lean toward the east, and then it's going to kind of like back off a bit, which pretty much means that we will see temperatures during this upcoming week here in the Northeast climb back toward the 80s, but will not get anywhere near the 90s or the triple digit temperatures that much of the southern United States is going to be seeing and central states will be seeing for much of this week.
Yeah, the one other thing with what you've described, which is absolutely correct, by the way, the one thing I would add to what you described is that we're going to be on the downside of that ridge. In other words, we're going to be on the east side. The winds aloft are going to be from the north. So there's going to be a boundary zone that's going to form between that very hot air, and we saw it last week, basically cut across western Pennsylvania. So if you were west of there, you were in the mid to upper 90s. If you were east of there, you were mostly 80s. And along that boundary zone, and it's a little bit unusual because it's a north-south, it's a boundary zone where things are going to be moving from north to south rather than from east to west or southwest to northeast or even northwest to southeast. You've got the stuff coming over the top of the ridge is going to be moving along that boundary zone, and that's probably there's going to be a narrow north-south zone, I think, where you're going to have disturbances go by that will produce some showers and thunderstorms. The models are showing that, for example, for Tuesday or later Tuesday night into Wednesday, that boundary zone is sitting right along the immediate coast of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, and then as the week progresses and the trough off to the east pulls away, that boundary zone shifts a little bit to the west. And I think that's why we're seeing models kind of struggling with, well, what's the upper low going to do? Is it all going to pull out? The European wants to suggest that the bottom part of that drops off the southeast coast and then rides the boundary up the coast late this week and this weekend, where we get on and off, have to deal with on and off rain. GFS says no. It's just a minor piece that breaks away that really doesn't really do very much, and that for the most part we're just going to have seasonal conditions with regards to temperatures, and maybe you get a shower or thunderstorm here and there, but nothing really that's going to cause a problem. So that I think is the forecast challenge for this coming week.
Well, we saw that, didn't we, about a month ago, where a system that was in our vicinity or whatever like that moved out over the ocean and then kind of retrogressed back
Yeah.
to the east, to the
Right.
west, I should say, and came back and kind of interfered with our weather. So this is the pattern that apparently started, the foundations of which began some weeks ago. And it looks like, as you said, Joe, this does not look like it's going to be breaking down anytime soon.
Nope. Happy Father's Day to everybody on the chat board. It's a low turnout out on this Father's Day, and why shouldn't it be? Because the weather's so nice, and Dad is being Many dads are out there this morning getting treated to what they what other people think they want in order to be happy. So I hope you enjoy yourself. That's just a little dig on my part because I've always told the joke, and it's actually there's truth in this about how every Father's Day I would go to Belmont Park and spend the whole day watching horse racing and enjoying myself. And one of these years, or I'll actually be able to get to do it. And I still, by the way, I still haven't done it. I've been saying that for 20 years, and I still have not done it.
But you have been to Belmont Park at least once, right? Or
Oh, hundreds of times. I've been to Belmont,
okay,
Saratoga, Aquasuck, uh, the Monmouth Park. Uh, there's a few parks I do want to go to that I haven't been to. I'd like to go to, and actually now it's not a difficult drive, but I want to go to Keeneland in Kentucky because they have a Saratoga-like horse speed in the spring and then another one in the fall. So one of these spring or fall seasons, I'm just going to get in the truck and head over to Keeneland and spend some time there. So that's kind of on my bucket list, I guess, of things to
I'm
do.
sure you remember, and we were much younger back then. But back in the '60s on Channel 9, I think on Saturday afternoons, they used to do like an hour's worth of races, either from Aqueduct or Belmont Park. And Win Elliott, I believe, was the guy who did the commentary. It was always sponsored by Schaefer, the Schaefer Circle of Sports, and the guy who called the races at Belmont and Aqueduct for many years was Fred Capicella. You remember Fred
Yes.
Capicella?
Hmm.
Good afternoon, racing fans. This is Fred Capicella. The track is fast, the day is clear, and I talk funny. That's Fred Capicella.
And don't forget that the turf is firm.
Yes. You don't see that though anymore.
Oh, I love
Everything, and it's amazing because yesterday I turned on the set in the afternoon, a Saturday afternoon, and what did I have? I had baseball, I had NASCAR, I
yeah.
had hockey, I had every sport under the sun, but no racing.
You can find horse racing. You
What
just need to
racing?
get you just need to have the horse racing channels, and not everybody has them.
Yeah, well, and of course they did at least they televised the Triple Crown, the
Right.
Derby
Those
at
are the
Preakness and
those
Belmont, or
a lot of people think that those are the only three races that occur all year long, and you know maybe there's the Breeders' Cup in the fall, but there's so much that goes on all year round, especially in the summertime. And go up to Saratoga, which I always love to do. I used to go every summer and go at least one trip up for a day or two, and it was just a lovely experience. I don't know if the OTB channel is still around, Christina Peter. I don't even know I don't even know if OTB is one of the few betting operations in the world that was well known for the fact that it lost money. Okay, I mean they actually turned it into an art form, and that's because they paid they paid their management people um, six-digit salaries with big numbers on them. So no wonder that as a betting establishment they wound up losing money. Chuck Cardillo, by the way, an early super chat hit Joe before the show even started, and we wish him a happy Father's Day, and
oh,
he wishes us a happy Father's Day. Thank you so much. And
I have
I
to show you. I have to show you my Father's Day gift for my daughter. Gave me a very lovely card, and then I said, and this is the first year. Now my daughter is going to be, well, she's 21 plus, and all these years she's always made me a card out of construction paper, or whatever. And I always look forward to that. First year that she did not do that, and I was disappointed. I said, I thought you were going to make me something for Father's Day. Well, she gave me a lovely card. It was one of these multi-page cards or whatever. And then in the back of the card, there was this, and it is
uh
it is a it is a coupon for KFC on her. And interestingly, she also put an expiration date here, New Year's Eve of this year. So I have between now and New Year's Eve to get my KFC. And she even put the price. It's good for up to $39.99. So
nice. Used it. Yep. I have a general rule: if you get a gift card or anything like that, use it right away. Because if you don't, it winds up someplace in a drawer or in your wallet, and you never use it. Um, so my advice is to plan on using it in the next day or two.
Maybe not the next day or two, but I said New Year's Eve would be a nice day to, you know, get a bucket of chicken.
Well, I just got, it's on my counter as my son-in-law helped me with yesterday. I got my new air fryer. So today I'm going to sit down and read the pamphlet in very, very. I didn't even look to see if the print is small, but I have to tell you, this is going to be right. And then we'll get on. Let's get on to doing some weather. In the last, I don't know. It's always been this way for a while, but I really particularly noticed it in the last number of months because of the way I've been feeling. You buy these things, Joe, and they come with these little pamphlets that give you instructions. Could they print? Could they make the print any smaller? They're
Yeah,
impossible to read. I have a bottle of melatonin, which I take. I might take a melatonin to help me sleep sometimes. And the print is so ridiculously small, and I keep thinking, do you realize that a lot of this stuff is used by old people? Do you really,
yeah,
do you really need to put a safety cap in order to open, that's impossible to open with your hands. It took me 2 hours to open up a container of Tide detergent pods because now and I understand the need for the safety cap, especially because you've got idiot teenagers that seems to think the stuff is edible. But it still makes it very, very difficult to open it up. I mean, we're old people, okay? We are cramping up. We get arthritis. We can't see. So, all right, let's get to the satellite view. And by the way, uh, I looked a couple of times yesterday, Joe. Unless I missed it, did they have a wind advisory up? Because there were gusts of 40 to 50 miles an hour during the day yesterday, especially down near the coast. I didn't see one.
it's I didn't see it either, but it was pretty darn windy out there yesterday. And the funny thing is that it was a bit breezy yesterday morning. Then it almost seemed like the breeze had flattened out a bit in the midday hours, and then all of a sudden the winds picked up in the afternoon, and it really did get very, very windy. The other thing was that my forecast for yesterday was for more clouds than sun. I went outside at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's like scattered clouds, bright sunshine. I said, "What the heck is this all about?" I was actually, that you're into this sort of thing when everybody else is probably enjoying the sunshine, and meanwhile you're.
Yeah, I know, I
But
know.
but by
I've
midday
been
and
down that road.
but by midday and afternoon it got almost totally overcast, and I was very happy. And meanwhile everybody else was going.
Right. Well,
But today it's beautiful,
there
blue
were
sky,
those
bright sun, and a little bit of breeze.
there were those two upper troughs that were coming down, and there was some spacing in between them that allowed the weather to be actually, it's for most of the day, for most people it was a good day, so sky in terms of sky condition. But I did hear, I did hear a fair amount of complaining with regards to the wind. And we've got to remember, this time of year the sun is a very, very powerful instrument, and when you have as cold an upper atmosphere as we had, I mean, it was really way below normal. Uh, that cold air aloft is going to, and you got all this daytime heating going on at the low levels. That's all going to mix down, and that's what happened. I mean, you had this tremendous amount of mixing that went on, and it created for a very, very turbulent atmosphere. Meanwhile, if you look at the loop, if you look at the satellite loop that I have on the screen, you can see the rotation of the upper low is sitting east of Cape Cod, and it's pulling. Clouds have been, obviously being lifted up to the east, or being lifted up into New Brunswick, and then rotating back westward. You see the back edge right now is in New Hampshire, and it's actually now cleared out, even starting to clear out in parts of southeastern New England. But some of this, a little arm just kind of backed westward last night, and it brought in some rain. Most places got about a quarter of an inch of rain. Eastern Connecticut, the eastern half of Long Island, I did notice, Joe, a few forecasters back in New Jersey panicked over the rain on the radar and thinking that the rain was going to back all the way west into eastern Pennsylvania, which was never going to happen. But on the whole,
Oh,
that was the one minor interruption that we thought might happen. It happened. And meanwhile, you look at the satellite, you got to go. Here's something we haven't said in a while or seen in a while. You have to go all the way to the southwestern part of the U.S. to get into any rain because they actually have some, and you can see it streaming northward. And they're getting big rains up. They're going to be getting big rains up in Montana again, and in northwestern Wyoming. There's more moisture funneling northward there. So for the time being, they're getting at least something down in the southwest.
there's a big story about the fact that while Montana and especially Yellowstone got drenched in recent days, everybody's saying, "Where's the governor? Where's the governor?" And the governor was on vacation in Italy
Oh,
when all this was happening. So, but I mean, if you're an elected official, you have the opportunity to take some time off. Unfortunately, for the governor of Montana, he took it when his constituents were getting, you know, almost drowned by all of that heavy rainfall.
yeah. And by the way, I'll just to illustrate it, what you were describing before with the troughing in the west, the ridge in the middle, and then the trough off the east coast. This is what your heat is going to be, where the upper high, near where that upper high is. But everything is coming over the top. I don't know why that did that. Let's back on. There we go. Everything is going to be coming over the top, and that's why where we are with the trough, with respect to the trough to the east, as we start to move through this week, is going to make a difference as far as whether we get into any kind of shower or storm activity from time to time. So that's the one that's the one issue I think for the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states. And meanwhile, you can see with that upper high sitting across the south, obviously it's gonna bake. The only upside that I would, I'm not I don't know about you, I'm not a fan of 101 degree temperatures. Um, but the one upside, Joe, is the fact that because of where the high is positioned, it is going to be, it's not going to be crazy humid because the high is so far north that it's actually, the hot air is actually coming in from the northeast rather than coming up, say, with the humidity and the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. So that
Right.
that is a that's a big deal. So 100 stinks, but better to do it with dew points in the 50s and not dew points at like 64 or 65.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, when Renata and I were in Las Vegas a month ago, or almost a month ago, the temperature on one of the days hit 104, and you'd say to yourself, "Oh my God, 104 degrees!" But dew point temperatures were only in the 20s. The funny thing is, when it was, I was seeing dew points in the 20s, and they were actually talking about the fact that, my goodness, it's not only so hot, but it's also gotten a bit humid. I mean, to people who live out there, when the dew points, soar, he said, into the 20s, that's actually humid for folks
Yeah.
who live out in the desert Southwest. But for us, it's just it was hot, it was dry. It felt to me a lot more like 85 to 90 as opposed to 100 plus. So yeah, the humidity does make a big difference.
So as we check out the radars today, the busy spot today, Joe, is up in Montana. If you want to grab a radar from up there, you're more than welcome. And also, we've got some showers in Maine and off of in southeastern New England.
And you look at the satellite picture again, and it looks, that classic comma shape that really shows a very wound up system in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And I feel bad for people who live, for example, in Maine or in coastal sections or
You could
eastern
you could
sections
you
of
could share, you have
Massachusetts.
sharing, by the way. If you want to pull up some radars, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, but there really isn't all that much to show. But I will do that. I will
Well, you
proceed
can go to
in that.
you can look at southeastern New England and then go look up in Montana because that's where it's raining today.
Okay.
You know, we do have
Alrighty.
we do have viewers in Big Sky country.
We do.
Yes, both of them.
You know who? Yeah.
Just kidding.
But
We'd
I've
like more than two, by
I've
the
been
way.
I've been to Big Sky Country, and it is a gorgeous. I'd love to get back out there one of these days. I've been to Arizona like 4 times now, but I've only been to Montana once. I don't know why that is, but if I had a chance, my if I had the daughters, I'd go back to Montana. It is just absolutely, of course, not right now, but it is a beautiful. And you know who had um, not a hotel necessarily, but a place where you could go out and put up your feet for a few days or even a few weeks or whatever. The late Chet Huntley, the newscaster from NBC in the 50s and 60s and early 70s, he actually built this gigantic ranch.
Hmm.
I think they called it Huntley Ranch or whatever like that. That was would have been a great place to go. I don't know if it still exists, but um, that would be a great place to spend some time. All right, I'm going to the radar here. Let's check out. First of all, let's check out the uh, one from Boston, uh, which is the three-letter code is box. See what's going on out over there. Oh dear. Well, let's share that. Here we go. Yes, as you can see, folks, if you decided that, Dad, we're going to go out to Cape Cod and spend Father's Day weekend at the Cape, not good news because they have, as you can see on this radar, quite a bit of wet weather flowing on that northeasterly airflow down across the Cape, as close to Boston as just giving Boston a glancing blow. Of course, everywhere west of there, sky is clear and it's beautiful, but unfortunately, for those who are out east, it's not a very nice looking day. By the way, I want to point out also, not, I mean, you go out to eastern Long Island, out to Montauk, they're getting grazed by maybe not right now, but earlier on in the morning, people waking up out there getting a bit wet. And it's probably still a bit on the cloudy side out east, maybe toward the Hamptons. But again, further to the west, out in this area here, it is mainly clear and sunny and dry. Now for Montana, let's see, there's BLX. I know that Great Falls is up here somewhere, but we'll check
Yeah,
out.
most of the rain's in eastern Montana at the moment, but
Right.
but you could see it on your shot there.
Yeah, you can see it's this is a central. It looks like mostly central Montana. I'm trying to see where. Let's see. This may be. I think this is Bozeman, BZN. Um,
Yeah,
and
Bozeman.
I know somewhere out here is Helena and Great Falls. Let's see if I can go somewhere. Well, you see, I can't really go east. There's not much. It's a big state, Montana, and this is about as close to the east as I possibly can get. Now, if I
Right.
go further east, I go to Bismarck. Well, of course, you know that that's where the Raccoon National Cemetery happens to
Of
be located.
course.
And Bismarck right now is more or less devoid of any kind of precip. You got to go way over to the west toward Montana to see a few widely scattered showers out there.
All right. So you did your duty. You did your radar duty for today, which is great. The Storm Prediction Center, and by the way, I'm just going to say this. There was something on Twitter. Apparently, there were a couple of meteorologists complaining again about uh, the tornado watches where the tornadoes actually didn't happen, and basically saying that the SPC went overboard with the tornado watch in the Northeast on that one day last week, and it's just like, seriously, can you stop? Can you just stop it? The complaining. You put up a watch for weather that's potentially destructive, and it doesn't happen. And if you're concerned about, the crying wolf too many times factor, guess what? We're way past that anyway. Uh, there is just always going to be a group of people that are just never ever going to listen to watches and warnings, and you really need to come. need to come to grips with that, okay? It's just not going to happen. So you put the not you, Joe, but I'm just saying in general, those who are that bring it up that are afraid about this. You need to come to grips with the fact that that's always going to be the case. There's nothing you can do about it. Just do your job. If a watch goes up or whatever it is, and it winds up underperforming according to what you think the guidance is telling you, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, and you move on to the next one, and that's it. Okay, and forget about criticizing SBC for just basically doing their job, and they do a very good job. So I just wanted to put that out there. Slight risk for severe weather in eastern Montana, as is plainly obvious with what's going on the radar. Also in western North Dakota, marginal risk extends down into parts of Colorado. We also have a marginal risk covering a good chunk of the Florida Peninsula. Otherwise, the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, much of the Southeast, the Gulf states, except right along the immediate coast. The Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, the middle and upper Mississippi Valley, even the lower Mississippi Valley. No thunderstorms are forecast at all today. For tomorrow, we are looking at nothing in the east, marginal in the northern plains, general thunderstorms in the Gulf states, nothing. And again, this is, if you look what's going on across the south, away from the Gulf Coast, this is, again, due to the position of that upper high, is going to be creating a it's hot air, but it's basically stable air. And we've got a marginal risk on day 3 covering parts of the middle Mississippi Valley and into southern Wisconsin. So no widespread severe weather outbreaks this week from what we see. Rainfall amounts in the east. Again, where is that boundary going to be between the hot air and the, let's call it the not so hot air? Along that boundary zone, there'll probably be some showers and thunderstorms to contend with from time to time, which is why SBC's got the 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inches areas, mostly inland, and less than a half, in fact, less than 1/4 of an inch up and down the coastal plain. Not much in the Gulf states, not much in the Ohio Valley. Some rains in the northern plains, some bigger rains up in Montana and the northern Rockies, and also big rains, substantial rains moving and covering in a good chunk of New Mexico now, getting up to several inches of rain this week, and into southern Colorado. So some evidence that the drought conditions there are going to get slightly alleviated in a slightly larger geographic area in the Southwest, but they still have a long way to go. Now, on the Joe, on the upper air, and I would said at the beginning of this illustrious program that you and I are blessed to be part of, and the reason why Joe and I are blessed to be part of, and no one else is blessed to be part of it, is because the fact that, well, it's our show. So there. But there's your trough in the east, and troughs on both coasts. Those dips in the jet stream that you're seeing right there, one in the east, one in the west. This is the upper air for this morning. Big upper high centered right over Mizzou, and your upper flow is doing this kind of thing, that omega block, as Joe mentioned. And excuse me, as we go through the week, the trough in the east lingers, okay, and that's part of that key to the forecast. And again, when I mentioned about being on the edge here, if you see the ridge just kind of spreads out a little bit. The next 2 days, here's we're getting the flow around the upper trough, and then right here is the flow around the ridge. So that zone right in the middle there is where you're going to see weather disturbances moving from north to south, and those could trigger off some storms. Now, does the upper low, as the GFS has it, where it sort of pivots back toward Cape Cod? We're still under the influence of this on Thursday before it opens up and lifts up to the northeast. And then goes from there. And you'll notice going into next week, we've got, and now the ridge in the south is this sort of east-west configured upper ridge that goes from coast to coast. And you've got this, we're in this westerly flow in the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states. Can't really get hot in a flow like that, except for the odd day when the boundary's close. And here come more troughs dropping down. And in fact, look, and I don't know if this is way out in the long range, so who knows if it's real, Joe. But look at this. It's another deep upper low coming into the Great Lakes and into New England, right around the weekend of the 4th of July. I mean, that's it's kind of like what we
I
have
saw that.
now. I mean, look at
I,
it's a little different, but the idea is the same.
I saw that, and we think traditionally of the Fourth of July as a hazy, hot, humid day with again the firecrackers popping in the background or whatever. And if this and again this is like many days ahead, looking ahead to the Fourth of July. But I mean if you take it at face value now, it would be very much like what we have, as you just mentioned, Joe, what we have now, which is unseasonably cool air, which is something you just don't normally expect for the Fourth of July. But we'll see how that all pans out. I want to mention on the chat board two super chat hits, actually three, I believe. One from David Carter.
Thank you, David
One,
Carter.
one from Leon Probitsky,
Thank you,
and another
Leon.
from Barry Goldberg.
Thank you, Barry
And
Goldberg.
and Chuck Cardillo, I got to chuckle at this, says that the Weather Channel, Joe, is now talking about naming heat waves and putting them in categories. And Chuck says, I laughed when I heard that. I laughed when you posted that, Chuck. It's bad enough that they name winter storms. Now, Joe, they're thinking about naming heat waves
Make it
on the
make
Weather
them
Channel.
make them go away. Can we just make them go away?
You know what? Why they're doing this? I might point this out. At
It
one
it
time,
it makes money.
well, they need it because at one time in their illustrious history, the Weather Channel, I believe they sold the Weather Channel to NBC Universal for something like I don't know how many billions of dollars. And then after Universal
They
changed
couldn't.
the number of things like putting movies on instead of reporting weather and doing all this stupidity that they got involved with. And saw that the interest in the Weather Channel was diminishing. They sold it. Now I don't remember the name of the comedian, but there's a comedian now, and he owns the Weather Channel, and he bought it out of pocket for I think something like $400 million. Think about that now.
I think I
Uh,
think I think no, you're right about the concept. I think the number was actually far less than that. The NBC basically had to give it away. I
right.
also I also think that it's now there's the weather company that
Yeah.
I think that just got kind of started. IBM had it, and then they just sort of spun it off, and then I'm not sure what the story is with that, but I think the Weather Channel's part of this whole thing called the Weather Company. And anyway, like
It
yeah,
was
that's just ridiculous. They're gonna start naming heat waves. I mean, why do we not? Let's start naming drizzle events for God's sake. I mean, come on. I mean, this is really stupid. Look. I'll just say this. I think I, I think we give too much importance to the whole concept of the Weather Channel to begin with. There was once upon a time when they were new, they were doing something revolutionary. It was wonderful. Those days are long gone. So you know what? You want to go name them? Go ahead and name them. Nobody's watching you anyway. So just leave. Just leave that. We'll leave it at that.
bring back
I'm sure I'm
bring
making. I'm
back
sure I'm making great friends by me saying that, but it's true.
bring back Fred Barnhill, who used to do the overnights on the Weather Channel, and all that. You're absolutely right. It was so much better, so much geared to actual weather when they first got started back in the early '80s. I wish they would go back to that. I knew things were going to be changing, not for the better, when they had little features like Mac the Mechanic.
Yes, right. Well,
telling you,
look, there's about as much chance of them doing that as us going back to rotary telephones. It just is not going to
yes,
happen.
John Loachman. I'm hoping I pronounced that correctly. Hitting super chats. He says, I find it funny the whining weathermen complaining about the other whining weathermen. It's Father's Day. Why not enjoy some
No,
pulled pork?
and he's right, and he's right. We are whiny weathermen. We're both, between the two of us, Joe and I are well over a century and a quarter old. Okay, we have parts of our bodies that make noise that nobody wants to be within vicinity therein, especially me these days. So I get it though. Yeah, we just rant sometimes, but that's a new name on the board that I don't recognize. So welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. We do whine from time to time, but sometimes sometimes every once in a while when Gemini's in retrograde to Libra, we're in good moods.
We are known among the local weather uh, group, or the people who watch weather up here in the New York area, and now down in Georgia too. We're the wine experts,
Yes.
so we know how to wine. David Schwartz, thank you for hitting super chats. He asks Joe, will any of the moisture from Blias or Celia in the Eastern Pacific
Blas,
make it to the southwestern United States?
blas,
Blah,
blas,
blah, blah,
blah,
blah,
blah, blah,
blah.
blah.
And Frank Riccio also hitting super chats. Thank you, Frank.
Well, the tropical moisture from the Pacific from Hurricane Blas. Actually, I'm just looking at yes, some of it. You know what? Some of it's probably going to get drawn, but I don't think it's enough that would make a difference. That monsoonal tropical moisture is pretty dominant anyway. Um, but it's sort of at the bottom. If you look at the upper air here at the moment, we've got this is the European now that I've just popped up on the screen. So this is the remnant, what will be the remnant of Blas. And there's your upper trough that's in the west. It's there's a little bit of a ridge right in the middle, just like that little connection between the ridge that's in the Mississippi Valley and the one that's off the west coast. It's kind of shielding it to some degree, but then it opens up. So but maybe some of it flows up there. I don't think it's enough to make it to add to what's already going to be happening anyhow, because the flow is southwest. In fact, as we go into this week, if you want to just sort of follow the flow, it's the highs building back into New Mexico, and you've got troughing here down from Montana into the southwest. So more moisture is going to try to funnel up into parts of the southwest. Again, for you folks, that's good news. Meanwhile, just looking at the European, going back to the comparison with the GFS, the European actually drops the whole upper low southward toward Bermuda and then westward toward the Carolinas. In fact, one of the runs yesterday would give you the idea that some kind of subtropical storm might form out of it and then eventually just get sucked northward up the East Coast. I don't know if that's, I looked at that and I thought, well, that's probably just as bad as when the GFS spins up everything in the deeper tropics. I could see the idea of the bottom of that trough getting left behind. I just don't know if the Europeans doing too much here by taking most of the trough and dropping it southward as opposed to the GFS, which kind of has more of a weaker piece. I think the weaker piece idea might make more sense, but we'll see. But look, the bottom line is the troughing wants to stay in the east at least through days 8 and 9, and even on day 10, you just got this flat ridge across the south. So I don't see any material change. Last week, the GFS in the long range was trying to show the ridge going into the eastern part of the United States. I thought it was probably going to be wrong then, and I think it's still wrong. If you look at the teleconnections, interestingly enough, the PNA, Joe, the Pacific North America Index, is actually in reality getting far more negative than what was forecast last week. It's well over one standard deviation. So you've got a lot of the members going to 2 standard deviations negative before it starts to climb around July 1st. But overall, it's still negative going into July. So nothing is really changed there except for the fact that what's a negative profile in the atmosphere is going to be more so. And what I mean by negative is when the PNA is negative as it measures pressure changes over the Pacific and over parts of North America, that when it's in a positive position, you have a trough in the east and a ridge in the west. When it's in a negative position, you generally have troughing in the east and ridging in the west. It's a little more, I'm oversimplifying it because there's a lot of geography that's involved here, but that's sort of the general rule. But the NAO, oddly enough, has been very sort of resiliently steady in the idea that we're going to be slightly negative until further notice. And you've got half the members well above, half the members well below. And again, this creates some instability. I tend to think that the NAO is going to be more negative than anything else over the next 2 weeks. And I think that means that we're going to see troughing in the east, and the negative implications of the negative PNA will be that we're going to have to watch to see how close we are to that boundary between the ridge in the middle and the troughing that's along and off the east coast. That's my little old never to be humble opinion.
Well, wouldn't that fall into the same category of what we've just said some minutes ago, that the pattern seems to be favoring, at least here in the Northeast, a cooler than normal weather pattern, and with that PNA, as you said, or you just showed to all of us, running, 1 to 2 deviations, below normal. I mean, that would seem to point toward, again, an atypical. I think the last time we had a summer like this was about 10 years ago. In fact, I refer to that as the Garden of Eden summer, because here in the tri-state area, the New York area, we had very few 90-degree days, many days like what we have right now. Blue sky, bright sunshine, and temperatures struggling just to make it to the low and mid 70s. I mean, bravo. If we can have more days like this, I'm all for it. And hopefully the pattern will stay this way for at least a little while.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as I've also often said, sometimes you start off like this, and then when you least expect it, like in the middle and latter part of summer, as you get on toward the end of August or September, all of a sudden, here comes the heat that was missing during June and July.
Well, look, the switch could certainly be flipped long before that. Maybe it gets flipped in the middle of July. Maybe it gets flipped at the end of July, and you wind up with a hot second half. That's not out of the question either. Here's your surface map, and of course you see the stormy, the low over in Maine, Nova Scotia, as we go into Monday. Starts to pull away slowly, high to the south, and then you can watch these. Look at what's going on up in Montana, for example. All that rain comes over the top, just like it did last week, and then it drops southward out of Canada, straight south. This is for Tuesday afternoon and evening. The GFS has got that boundary zone right along the coast there with showers. Much of the rest of the east is dry, so it's just a matter of being in the wrong spot. Then Wednesday, it actually enhances those showers during Wednesday with that boundary. And by the way, if you're west of that boundary, which cuts across central PA, so if you're west of that boundary, you're in the 90s. If you're east of that boundary, you're in the 80s, just east. And if you're east of New York City, you're probably going to be in the 70s through much of this because of clouds. And where it's raining, it's probably going to wind up being in the 70s. And then you start to see it. The GFS wants to do that whole thing late next week with whatever's off the East Coast being weak and offshore. So it just sort of shifts everything out and moves it along, in which case weather conditions generally improve as we go through the latter part of this coming week and next weekend. And then we have the next cold front maybe coming along about a week from Monday. See it there with some showers and thunderstorms and high pressure behind it. While the European, on the other hand, because it's got that troughing in the south, and I'll bring up the European run from last night, that goes out far enough. And again, I'm kind of leaning more toward the GFS idea here than the European. Not saying that the European can't be correct, but a lot of times models like to drop whole troughs, and it doesn't winds up only being a piece of it. But you can see the boundary zone on the European just kind of hangs around all week, and then you got this flow off the ocean that comes in for next weekend. I'm not 100% sold on that idea at the moment. So I am going to be, as whiny as I am and as crotchety as I am. And by the way, normally I'm not. Joe knows me well enough. I'm a pretty up type of person most of the time. But I'm going to put my optimist hat on for after whatever happens along the middle part of this week.
Okay. And by the way, I while you were talking a little while ago, I did look up Chet Huntley, and it was this came right after he had retired in 1970. It was a 25,010,647 acre resort and recreation area in the mountainous wilds of western Montana. They called it Chet Huntley's Big Sky. And it was really not Chet Huntley's, by the way. He loaned his name and his image to the project, and he was most interested in it. But it was really the ones who really owned this place was Chrysler Realty, Northwest Orient Airlines, Burlington Northern Railroad, Continental Oil, and Montana Power. All of those were that was the consortium that owned the Huntley Lodge. But it turned out that I don't even think it exists anymore. The person who, and I'm reading an article from 1974. Uh, for example, for dinner, you could go over to the nearby Yellow Mule restaurant. So, I mean, this does not look like it's still available. I suspect it's not available, but if you ever do go to Montana and you're looking up Huntley Lodge, I don't think that it exists anymore. And by the way, I was surprised to realize this. Chet Huntley, how old do you think Chet Huntley was when he passed away, Joe?
Um, he didn't. I thought he was. If I remember correctly, he was on the youngish side, wasn't he? I mean, David Brinkley
He
wasn't.
died. He died of lung cancer at 62.
Yeah, I thought
How old
so.
are you, Joe?
I'm 63, so you've already lost that bet.
Oh, all right.
And so I haven't. Listen. The way I felt what we've been feeling about with the last 8 months between my stomach issues and now, of course, with my dislocated ankle. Um, I've wondered sometimes, but thankfully, no. I'm still lurking about, and I have no plans to. I have no plans. I've had the two compliments that I've had from my doctors over in the course of my last 10 years, Joe, was my well, very recently, just a couple of weeks ago, when I just had the dogs took me out of the dog park and wound up getting my ankle dislocated. My doctor said that I must have bones like steel rods because the fact that the bones.
How is that? How is that coming along? By the way, I mean, is it? Have you gotten used to it now, walking around
Yeah.
with?
Oh yeah. No. I can actually hold on. I'm probably risking an accident here. Let me see. Let me see if I can bring my give me a second. I'm gonna turn the camera down. Hold on. There's my boot. So actually, Joe, I can actually get around quite well in this. Surprisingly enough, the first day took me a little getting used to, but I have to keep the weight off that leg. And the boot, the way they make them, the bottom of it is like I'm basically walking on a brick. So I'm not. I don't. Even if I'm trying to walk a normal walk, I don't feel like I'm putting any weight on my foot at all. It cushions it. It absorbs basically all the weight that I'm putting on it. So I'm fine. I the only minor thing is that I should, that the doctor said I could take the boot off at night when I'm in bed, but I'm not the most. I tend to move around in bed when I sleep, and I just have this fear that I'm going to just turn my leg in the wrong direction in the middle of the night, and because I got a screw in there, and I don't want to screw it up. I got 3 weeks left before the screw comes out, and I want to get there with no complications. So he told me that, just going back to what I was saying, the doctor said that I must have bones like steel rods because of the fact that I didn't by the way my foot came in, which was at a 90-degree angle. My ankle should have been completely shattered. And the other thing was when I went for my prostate exam, and the doctor says your prostate is a thing of beauty. It's absolutely minuscule. To which I said, Doctor, I'm Italian, and there's nothing minuscule about Italians. So let's just leave it at that.
Lovely.
Yes, I see you didn't
Well,
I just you didn't react to the comedy that was part of the prostate exam. I always thought that was one of the funniest things
no.
I've ever heard.
Yes.
Why? That's not your
Yes.
thing.
No. Oh,
But you've
dear.
had one. No.
Have I?
Yeah. Well, have
No.
you?
No.
Look,
No.
you and I are coming from two different places here. So I'm one of these. See, I'm one of these people that I'm not one of the. I don't shy away from conversations like this because of the fact that talking about this sort of stuff has never bothered me. I changed my kids' diapers, I wiped their rear ends, I cleaned up their vomit, all this other stuff. I know and this is usually a guy thing. Guys are like, ew, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. No, you know what?
No.
I'm not like that. It's like these are things that should be talked about. You should get a colonoscopy. You should take care of yourself because guys as a whole usually don't take care of themselves the way they should. Okay, in my opinion, um, they're. I mean, I know a lot of people that the minute that they have the slightest twinge, they run to the doctor and they go. But for the most part, if you're like if you're not that type of person, there are a lot of guys that just don't like to. They feel things that are not right and they just kind of let them pass, which I don't think is. Frankly, I'm a firm believer is if something's not broken, you go to home, you go to, it's like you take your car to get your oil changed. You go, you put it on the rack, they change your oil, they lube you up, and you go. This is, I think, how the medicine is now. You don't feel well. I mean, if you really don't feel well and you feel something is wrong, you go, you have it checked out. If nothing's wrong, fine. If something is wrong, you get it fixed and you move on. And
Yeah, but
that's me.
you bring your car in to get the oil changed, and of course they cannot help but do quote exploratory surgery, so to speak, where they say, "Well, Mr. Rayo, we changed the oil. However, we found that the serpentine belt in your car needs to be replaced. Now, do you want to have it replaced, or do you want to possibly risk the possibility of your
Of your
car
car
breaking down in the middle of the
exploding.
roadway,
Yes. Yeah, I don't.
exploding or whatever?"
I've always been lucky with mechanics. I've had I have always developed very deep personal relationships with my mechanics because that had this way, in case they have an idea of trying to rip me off, they'll at least feel badly about it. But I always got treated really well by the mechanics I had, so I never really had to worry about if they told me something was wrong, something was wrong, and I didn't mind so much that they looked around and found things because I was doing so much driving. But on the other hand, I understand what you're saying because there are people, there are businesses and their main aim is to, fix what you want fixed and then let's find other things that might be wrong and we'll try and we'll supposedly fix them and make a little extra
Right.
money. So
Yes,
any
exactly.
anyhow, I think we've pretty much covered the weather uh for tonight. I see
I think so.
Choosy Heretics choose Carnation Revolution now says his one of his panaceas for everything is a pinch of Himalayan sea salt in a Himalayan salt. I'm sorry, that's mountain salt. Himalayan salt in a glass of water. I don't know what the first panacea is though. I don't even want to guess, but we'll just leave it at that. But very interesting. The Himalayan salt thing. I've read up about that and listen, if it works, it works. If it works for you, go for it.
Indeed. So you're going to have the grandkiddies over
No,
today, or
they were here yesterday, so
oh,
I already had them yesterday, and it was a wonderful
they,
day.
so it's going
Um,
to be a quiet Father's Day
the
for you.
quiet Father's Day for me. I went and did my dog park social this morning, so that's all taken care of. And JJ is boy, I tell you something, Joe. He's so sensitive to the heat this week when the really hot and somewhat humid days that we had here. He just was totally out of it. And then on Thursday, when it, I'm sorry, on Friday when it broke in the afternoon, we had some thunderstorms go by. He just came alive. It was amazing just how the change because he didn't eat for 2 days and he barely drank for 2 days.
Uh-oh.
He just laid around and just basically slept for 2 days because the heat was just he just not he doesn't handle heat very well. So he was really happy this morning because it was so cool out. I mean, just running around like a one happy dog. So Anyhow, noontime. Let's say goodbye. Thanks for the super chat hits today. Happy Father's Day to all the dads watching the show. And Joe and I will be back tomorrow at the usual shopping time, which is 7:30 Eastern.
I'm just wishing everybody in my own way a happy Father's Day. That's my shirt today that I wear once a year, and here it is. Happy Father's Day to one and all.
All right, happy.
Actually, Renata and I, we have two shirts. She wears Mothers Know Best or Mom Knows Best, and I have a similar shirt that says Dad Knows Best. We should have worn those two shirts today, as contrasts or whatever. But regardless, happy Father's Day to all the dads who are watching, and happy Father's Day to you, Joe.
Happy Father's Day, Joe. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody.